Hello everybody, this is Brooke aka Supernatural Simmer 34 and today we are back at it with another speed build. Today's speed build is a restaurant in Strangerville because if you have not been paying attention, I've been rebuilding the southern or lower part of Strangerville. So far I've done a saloon slash apartment, a tiny home, this restaurant, and another house that I have yet to share. This is all in preparation for my Not So Berry series that I started I think Wednesday. I haven't even recorded the episode yet, to be honest, so I might be wrong on the day, but I'm pretty sure that's when I'm starting that. But this restaurant is in the same Old West style as the saloon, which is in my speed builds playlist, by the way. This is a style I'm really new to, but the reference picture I was working off of had green windows, so I decided to do those as well. And I think they add a nice touch because this building is honestly a little boring without them. One thing I struggle with a lot with building community lots is making them just look like repurposed homes, and that's not what I'm going for. Firstly, I don't think that's very realistic, and secondly, it makes the interior look really awkward if the exterior looks like a home. Obviously, sometimes there will be more similarities, like with Victorian and colonial styles. I think those are somewhat similar between venues and homes. I also struggled a lot with the landscaping on this build. On the rest of the builds in the neighborhood, I went with very lush green landscaping, but it didn't look quite right in this one. So I ended up getting rid of the low-lying flowers that were underneath everything and just left rocks, cacti, trees, and a couple different flowers to give it more color. But something I think I do that makes my community lots look more like homes is that I always add a back porch, and I know that every venue doesn't have one of those. That's something I avoided on the saloon, but with this one I wanted a lot of dining areas, so I added a back porch for that reason. This build is really rustic with a lot of dark browns and stone, which is a style I'm not super comfortable with. Usually I do a lot of light woods, mostly white and a sandy color, but I think the dark color can look really rich and gives it the vibe of an older building. I'm like 90% sure that Strangerville is based off of Arizona and likely an older town in Arizona, but I ended up naming it the Miner's Grub House, which is more alluding it to be in California during the gold rush. I know that Arizona is pretty close to California, so I'm not sure if they had their own little gold rush or if they piggybacked off of California's or something, but I thought that was a really good name for the building. It ends up being pretty dimly lit because I remove all of the overhead lights, partially because Sims were glowing and partially because I thought a more dimly lit place would give more of the vibe I was going for. I've been struggling a lot with finding signs to put on the walls on the front and back of these buildings because most of them are a bit more modern. I'm sure I could find better ones if I check the live edit objects though, I'm just not in the habit of using those. I think most of the times I use them are for landscaping in Strangerville because there's really no other way to match the surroundings. But I've started on the landscaping, and you'll see that I started off by putting down a bunch of low-lying flowers, and I end up removing every single one of those because it looked really cluttered and also kind of out of place, which, by the way, that's really weird because this exact kind of landscaping fit in perfectly with the rest of the buildings I did in this part of Strangerville. I don't know that I'm still entirely happy with the landscaping, but that's never really been my expertise. I mean, it looks nice if a bit rocky, but I know for certain it's better than when I had all those low-lying flowers. And I know some of you might disagree because you might prefer lusher landscaping no matter where in the world the sim is, and I would normally agree. I think the only time I ever have more bare landscaping is when I'm doing a modern home, of which I've done a couple during my time here on YouTube, but I don't know that I'd recommend them. I used to be really bad about voiceovers, and on one video with a modern house, I ended up not doing like the last 5 minutes of the voiceover because I didn't know what to talk about, and 5 minutes sounded like an unbearably long amount of time. Now, however, my goal for every single video is at least 5 minutes, though I like them to be at least 7. This one is a decent length, so you can rest assured that I won't stop the voiceover in the middle of the video and have the rest of the video play some god-awful music that was actually a ringtone on my phone because I had no idea how to do copyright-free music. Now I don't really do music at all because I cut out the beginning title screen, and I saw a tip to increase your watch time is to keep talking through the whole video, even the screenshots, because nobody really sits through the screenshots unless they have a reason to. Like, there's this one YouTuber I watch, and she puts screenshots at the end of all her speed builds, and they usually last around 3 minutes, and I know I would never watch those extra minutes unless the video is on a playlist and I'm just using it for background noise. But here is where I take away the low-lying flowers, and I think it looks much better if a little monotonous. I think this build ends up looking pretty good. I'm always really hesitant to do community lots because I know they usually end up looking like homes, but I think my use of the half walls and the openness of the space really helped with that. I used to be really bad about that, more particularly with gyms, I think. I don't know why, but I used to section the gym into different rooms for different pieces of equipment, even though we only have like 3, and I decorated it more like a home gym than any gym I've ever been to. Though, to be fair, I've only ever been to one gym, but I do know that they're a lot more open than that. I don't know what caused the closed offness of my restaurants though, because I've been to a lot of those and they're never super closed off. I think most of the time restaurants usually have the kitchen, the bathrooms, the main dining area, and then sometimes an area for like parties or large groups. With this one, I thought it was a bit of a family-owned restaurant, but of course you can't make those very easily. I haven't customized the menu for this yet, nor the waiter uniforms, but I'll probably get to that soon, because the current uniforms aren't cute and don't match the theme. But I really love Strangerville. It's a really good world, I think, and one of my favorites. I think my favorite worlds to build and live in have to be Strangerville, San Myshuno, and Brindleton Bay. Strangerville is really, really good for rustic builds and also Victorians. I think my only objection to this world is the infected. I could probably look it up if there's a cheat to solve that mystery, but I have yet to do so. And San Myshuno is one of my favorites simply because of the apartments, even though I only ever live in the fashion district. That's one thing that really bugs me about San Myshuno. I hate the different wall heights in apartments, but with the platforms I can kind of fix that, but I've yet to try it. Brindleton Bay is my go-to suburban world, though. I think it's because of Sable Square, because that place seems like such a nice place to raise children. And Whiskerman's Wharf is also really nice. I love building, like, starter houses there, or at least my version of a starter house, which is usually just a one-bedroom house. I've always wanted to live on the island, Deadgrass Isle, but I've yet to actually do so. I feel like an old couple with a lot of cats and dogs would live there. Maybe that's a speed build I'll do sometime soon, but I suck at sticking to plans, so don't get your hopes up. I think my least favorite part of Brindleton Bay is the 20 by 20 and 20 by 15 lots that are all the way out in the forest, though, because I'm really bad at building cottagey homes. That's something I need to work on, I think, because it renders a couple of the worlds almost unusable to me. My least favorite worlds are always the worlds I'm no good at building in. My least favorite worlds are probably Sulani, I know, don't kill me, Del Sol Valley, and Forgotten Hollow. Oh, and Glimmerbrook. I have not done one successful build in Glimmerbrook, and it also only has 4 lots, meaning it is definitely my least favorite world. Actually, no, scratch that. I think I did one successful build in Glimmerbrook back when it first came out because I was going to play with the pack. That never ended up happening though. And my reasoning for Sulani is also that I'm really bad at building in it. When the first pack came out, I was obsessed with building in that world, but looking back at those builds, they were really just suburban homes with a straw roof, or whatever that material is. It's really pretty though, but Del Sol Valley is also one of my least favorites just because there are no good lot sizes. Like, the smallest lots are all in the commercial part of Del Sol Valley, and it looks really weird to have a house there, so I'm stuck with the lots in Mirage Park, even though they're really big for no reason. And one of them isn't even connected to the road, which is infuriating. Also, the 50 by 40 lot really should have been split up into 2 or 3 lots. Probably 2, and then getting rid of one of the driveways, because if it were split into 3 equal lots, then they would be 40 by 15 lots. However, splitting it into 2 lots would have allowed for a 20 by 40 and a 30 by 40, which, while the 20 by 40 is pretty skinny, is much better than the 50 by 40 in the supposed starter area. You know, I don't think I've ever built a mansion in Del Sol Valley. Like, I've built the Land Grubs, a house in Oasis Springs, but I think that's the only mansion I've ever built. It's a really ambitious thing to build, though, so I don't know that I'll be building one of those anytime soon. But we're on to the furnishing, and I think I'm actually almost done with the first floor. The rest of this is pretty much just me placing down chairs and tables, but you can see that I was going for a very traditional restaurant. I did an interesting thing with the flooring because it looked really boring, where there's like a stone pathway around the restaurant. And I thought that was a nice touch. That stone is probably my favorite stone in game, and it bugs me that it came with Journey to Batuu, which is probably my least favorite pack. Like, I think My First Pet stuff tops Journey to Batuu, which is ridiculous. But I kept the restaurant pretty simple, and I made sure to include tables for parties of all sizes, because whenever I have a group of more than 6 Sims go somewhere, someone ends up at another table, which is really, really annoying. There are 3 balcony areas for Sims to eat here, one on the front, one on the side, and one in the back. There is also a porch area out back for people to eat at if you ever feel like eating outside while it's raining or something. I feel like this would be a really good place for a date, whether outside or inside, because it's dimly lit and there are so many 2-seater tables. Later, I add a lot of candles and flowers to add to that romantic vibe, and I also remove all of the overhead lights, except for the chandelier next to the staircase. I really feel like we could use more chandeliers, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. I was really struggling for a pretty chandelier with good colors. But I've deleted all of the overhead lights and put lamps on the tables, and I think it looks amazing. I'm pretty sure that the lights for the outside are like minor like lamps, because I was really trying to make it clear that this place is rustic and old and has probably been around since the town was founded. I feel like the family who owns this place was one of the first settlers in Strangerville, and they're very proud of the town and its history. They're also probably in on the Strangerville secret and are trying to keep up the facade of a perfect town. The bathrooms, I think, haven't been updated in a very long time. I use the vampire's toilets, and I think the sink comes with that pack as well. Again, I was really trying to keep with the rustic theme, and I think I've succeeded despite my lack of experience in this style of build. But here is where I start decorating the balconies, and it's pretty repetitive. I kind of struggled with the placement of tables on them because they're pretty cramped and I wanted everything to be accessible. We are actually almost done with the build though, because there isn't much left to do besides the balconies. I think you'll be able to notice though that I used the minor like lamps on the tables, and my only worry is that the decorations on the tables will intersect the food. I'm not too worried about that though. But the tables in back is where I was most worried, because I was trying to fit tables for larger families as well, because I know a lot of people prefer outdoor dining. I'm one of those people, especially at night, because the Sims developers do a really good job with making worlds. They're always really beautiful, I think. I actually have a folder on my desktop that's just filled with landscape screenshots that I've taken, and I alternate them as my computer background. But here I'm choosing a sign for the place because I think it's really realistic to have a sign designating where the place is. I think community lots tend to look a little incomplete if they don't have some sort of advertising on them, but I was kind of struggling to find a good sign. And eventually I settled on a more modern green one from Dine Out, which isn't really what I wanted, but you know, it looks nice anyway. But here we're onto the screenshots, which gives you a little bit of a better idea of what the place looks like. I tried to include screenshots of every area, and I think it looks really nice. I don't think I've made the thumbnail for this video yet, but I feel like it's going to be very pretty. I've been trying to make my thumbnails look nicer because I think a problem I have is that I tend to use cursive font, which isn't super readable sometimes, and it's usually pretty thin too. So I'm working on finding a font that is pretty but still thick and legible enough for the thumbnail. If you saw Wednesday's video, you'd know that I'm putting a little bit more effort into my thumbnails. The thumbnail for the first episode of Not So Berry is so stinking pretty. I am ridiculously proud of it, and I'm not even sure why. But we are coming up on the end of the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below, and I will see you all soon.